What's up, college sports fans? I'm Stuckey.
I'm Colin Wilson.
I'm Mike Calabrese.
I'm Maria Marino.
I'm Charlie DiSturco, and we're excited that the Big Bets on Campus brand is launching its very own YouTube channel.
You'll be able to find every episode of the BBOC podcast, live shows, and other college sports content on this new channel.
Not only will the channel be dedicated to betting on college sports, but you'll also be able to find exclusive interviews with former college athletes,
college football power rankings,
and updates on other topics like the brand new College Football 25 video game series and the ins and outs of the recruiting trail all the way down to the transfer portal.
Whether you're into college football,
college basketball,
college baseball, or any of the college sports,
we are the home for college sports, and BBOC is the channel for you.
Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the action. I'll see you there.
Welcome to Buckets, brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. We are 71 days as we record this from the start of the 2024-25 NBA season. So guess what? Strap in, folks. Settle in, because it's time for us to do some division previews. We're already here in the month of August going to get you a full breakdown on divisions, win totals, everything you need to know to bet these teams individually and on the division level. We're going to do this division by division. We've done this for the last, 4 seasons. And to do that, I've got NBA futures analyst Brandon Anderson. We'll go through each and every division starting this week. You're going to get 2 episodes a week with a one in the middle that's going to be me with guests. I'm going to do interviews that focus in on 2 of the more interesting teams in the divisions that we talk about. This week on Wednesday, you're going to be able to listen to an episode that focuses in on the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Detroit Pistons. Spoiler alert, this is going to be a Pistons podcast this year because I'm over leveraged on betting the Pistons. What could go wrong? As a reminder, everything we talk about can be found in the award-winning Action Network app. You can track your bets. You can follow Brandon's bets. You can follow all sorts of great stuff from all of our Buckets contributors in the Action Network app. Also, make sure to go to youtube.com/The Action Network, and you can catch all of our live shows. Buckets will be on there live throughout the course of the NBA season. You're going to want to check out all of this stuff. As kind of a programming note, so this is like not the first run, because this better not be the first run given how much time Brandon and I have spent on these things, but we're going to do like a full run of divisions. And then the month of September, we're going to kind of like narrow down on bets with various members of the Buckets crew. And then in October, we'll really start to get into like lead up to how to do these types of things. I have some fun game type things to go through as far as how to bet NBA futures. But for those of you that listen daily, weekly, we do appreciate you. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review or give us a like and subscribe at youtube.com/The Action Network. This is going to be kind of like the baseline season preview. We're already doing this in August because, quite honestly, outside of like Zach LaVine and Brandon Ingram, maybe everything's pretty much done. I'm not waiting on Damian Lillard like last year. So we're going to start today with the Central Division, Brandon, and we're going to go ahead and start there. You very kindly offered to do a layout format for us this year, and we're going to start with a 10-word thesis to kind of wrap up exactly like where we're at on this individual team, and then where we're at on a bet lean pass on win total or something else that has to do with a bettable thing for this team. We're going to start with the, I think, like 18 bajillion time defending division champ. Shouldn't have won it last year, but the Cavaliers decided to be absolute assholes about it. We're going to start with the Milwaukee Bucks. So I will ask you, what is your central thesis and bet on the Milwaukee Bucks?
My 10 words on the Milwaukee Bucks. The cast got better, but it's all on Dame's shoulders. And I am under the 51.5 on the Bucks, but I'm a pass on that one. How about you?
Mine, they missed the window. And I am under 51.5, a 2-unit play on that out of 5 potential units out of my bankroll for NBA win totals. So under 51.5 for me on the Bucks, going right back to the well with this team. I'll set the stage for us with where the market is at here before we get a sense for how you think about this team. This opened 51.5. There's now 50.5s in the market. It's juiced on under 51.5. Over 50 and at 50.5 in the market. So the market's, as we record this on August 12th, the market is saying 51 is the number. Like, not going to win more than 50, but not going to win a lot more than 50. The seating that you can find in the for this team, I thought was surprising. 3.5 minus 150 to the under, plus 125 to the over. I find that one very interesting. I'll talk about that later. Division for the Milwaukee Bucks, minus 135. When you look at this team, Brandon, as we kind of set the stage, what's like the big picture outlook that you have for the Milwaukee Bucks this season?
Yeah, I mean, this is a team obviously we have talked a lot about. We talked a lot, especially about them heading into last season. We had, we did our preview, I think, and then had to come back to them and update with the Dame trade that came late. And I think that's relevant here because what we thought at the time ended up holding up. That Dame trade fundamentally changed who the Milwaukee Bucks are. And I think that we need to think of them differently now than what feels like the same old Bucks, because there's still a lot of pieces there. But they went from what was something like a top 5 defensive team and a top 10 offense to now more like a top 5 offensive team, but a below average defense. And I think that's a lot how things set up for this team. And I think it's important to not just conflate, well, Giannis and Brook and Middleton, and it's the same old thing. No, it's very different now. It also might be a lot more different soon, Matt, because Brook Lopez is on an expiring deal. Chris Middleton and Bobby Portis have player options. They're not going to pick those up. They're going to be getting new deals. We don't really know what Doc looks like with this team. This core is rapidly aging out. This is an expensive team. If it does not go well this year, I think it could go very badly. Like, this could be an ugly last dancey sort of situation where it's just like, these guys are not going to make it happen for us. We know there's no picks. You can't tank. You can't find any other answers here. And I hate to do it, but the Giannis question is out there. And if things go bad, the Giannis question is going to come back to prominence. So big picture, if it doesn't go well this year, it could go very sour. Now, I thought they actually had a quietly really strong offseason, considering what they could do. They didn't have a lot. They had no money. They had no picks. They can't do much. They brought in DeLon Wright, Gary Trent Jr., Taurean Prince. Not guys I love, but like, they're fine. They're fine dudes, right? Like, they got them all on minimums. I thought they're exactly what they need. DeLon Wright, perimeter defender, POA, like point of attack. That's what they were missing last year. Gary Trent Jr., shooter, gravity. That's what they needed. They got Taurean Prince. I don't love him. Can kind of like sort of be Chris Middleton worse when Middleton misses some games. But they're replacing the corpses of Pat Beverly and Malik Beasley and Jay Crowder. Like, just getting rid of lots of really bad with, okay, we can handle that. Like, that's valuable. That's very valuable. And they got really like $30 million of free value on these minimum guys. So it's just 1 year, but there's short-term hope if things can work. But I'm selling the long-term picture thing, and I wonder if it might bleed over into this year.
Yeah, it's tough because, so I've got I'm not beholden to this, but it does kind of provide me the baseline of, all right, players added, players lost. What does this look like from a spread perspective? That influences the power rating, which is going to impact my projection. And they got basically, they are not significantly different than they were last season from where I'm at on this thing. They're about a half a win worse is kind of what happened with this. And that's mostly built off of, look, and we'll get to this later when we return to the Pistons. But Malik Beasley is not a player I am high on, but he is like an actual NBA player in his prime who's available and able to do some stuff. Like, when you and I were like, look at the roster out of training camp, they were like, yeah, Malik Beasley's their perimeter defender. You and I were like, click. Can we bet more? Like, how can we bet more on the under on the Bucks, right?
Yeah.
Because that's like a real overstatement of him, but he was like a helpful guy for them last season. So to me, that is a loss. Meanwhile, like, the numbers are going to get like spit out that DeLon Wright was a negative player last season. And I don't believe that. Like, I think DeLon's going to help them. DeLon's really good. DeLon was very impactful for the Miami Heat in particular. Like, he was really good with that team. Gary Trent Jr. was like, that's a very good addition of just like a guy that can hit some shots, right? Like, just a viable wing. They're not relying on older dudes. And Prince, honestly, I think is probably going to be better. Like, again, I've got him as a minus 0.6 on power rating. I don't think that's who Taurean is. I think Taurean's a very good player. Not very good. I think Taurean's a fine player, like you said, like fine. Yeah. And a guy that probably last year was miscast in how he was used with the Lakers and didn't fit in. And like now will probably be a lot more comfortable in this role because he's taken over for Jay Crowder, who for half of the year was like a real disaster. But I do think like that's part of my cap here is that like you look at their offseason, it's like how they do in the offseason. Like, yeah, they did pretty well.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, not enough to fix everything else. And that's where I kind of get to is like, I can't drastically, and I don't think anyone should drastically be like, oh, now they're good. They got DeLon Wright, Taurean Prince, and Gary Trent Jr. Now they're good. Now the chemistry part is I can't calculate that. So that can like, maybe it just fits together, but like, that's kind of the concern. Well, let's talk about what we like with this team. So when we kind of look at the overall profile of the Bucks, I mean, look, they won a bunch of games last year. They are one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, obviously. And Giannis in particular had like a monster year that was hard for me to give credit to because I did feel that dinging him for the Adrian Griffin stuff was appropriate. But if we just like look at Giannis's season, he was MVP worthy last year. What do you like from what you saw from the Bucks last season, at least on the page?
Yeah, I think a lot of what you just talked about. Giannis had a huge season. His 2% was up. His assists were up. He had a career best offensive rating, career best true shooting. I kind of missed it during the season, to be honest, too, until I kind of went back into the deep dive, and I ended up having him third on my MVP ballot last year. What I was excited about with the Dame trade for Giannis is maybe he'd get to do a little bit less and we get a better version of him offensively. I think we saw that. I think we actually got that out of Giannis. Now, I hoped that would give us back Defensive Player of the Year Giannis. I'm not sure we're going to get that anymore for a regular season. In the playoffs, maybe, but he was more efficient on lower usage. I think it's a better version of him that way. The competent minutes adding is huge here. The guys you talked about, Gary Trent Jr., DeLon Wright. If you told me DeLon Wright was going to start at the 2 next to Dame, they're never going to do it. Like, I think Gary Trent Jr. announced when he signed that he was excited to be a starter with them. Like, this is how the team's going to go. I don't get to make the lineup. If I did and DeLon was starting, I'd be higher on this team. Like, I really like DeLon. He's a great point of attack defender. I think that would balance the roster a lot better. With Dame and Gary Trent Jr. as the backcourt, there's no point of attack defense, and we're kind of stuck in this sort of zone like last year. But it did add what I think is like probably 4,000 competent minutes, replacing bad minutes. That's not nothing. That's not going to move the ceiling a lot, but it does raise the floor a lot, I think. Having a full offseason to recover from the Bud to Griffin to Doc thing, like neither you or I are big on Glenn Rivers, as our friend Raheem Palmer likes to call him. But I think just to settle in a little bit is good. Settle in from the Dame trade and just all of the drama of that last year. And you have Dame. Like, I don't know what version Dame is. He's going to be under my what we don't like part as well. But the last 3 healthy seasons, if we think he might not have been fully healthy last year, he had at least 120 offensive rating when he played. He basically plays on top 5 offenses. If you have Dame and you have Giannis, that should be about a top 5 offense. And if you have a top 5 offense, you're going to win a lot of games. So there's a lot to like there. I don't know if there's enough to love.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. There's a lot to like. There's not a lot to love. I think that's accurate. A couple of things I do want to kind of note here. They're a tough team to kind of factor because when they were winning games early, and I was like, you got to be kidding me on this, because it was so obvious they were broken. It was so obvious they were frustrated with how they were frustrated with the defense. There were all these flare-ups that we were able to indicate about that team. Like, it was just very apparent that coaching was such a huge problem under Griffin. I do want to note that, like, I will be roasting the team under Adrian Griffin here. It is entirely possible that it was just like Adrian walked into a tough situation. It didn't work out. And like Adrian will be a lot better later. Like, he's got a long-standing history as an assistant and a very good reputation. So I don't want to sit here and be like, he was garbage, but he was not the guy for this team. Like, that to me is absolutely evident and really can't be denied that he was not the guy to kind of get this team where it needed to go. Pre and before Doc, they basically didn't move in defensive rating. But one thing that was really interesting for me was the bench was a disaster under Griffin, to the point where Bobby Portis had a 118 defensive rating, and Bucks fans were ready to ship him to the moon. And I think there's still probably end of the year, because, prior bias, but first impression bias. But after Doc took over, that dropped to 112. Crowder went from a minus 8.7 to a plus 4.7 in his on-off splits. AJ Green is a guy that I kind of want to note here. AJ is like not going to help on the defensive side, which continues to be you and I's concern. But the minutes with AJ were extremely good, and Green is like an absolutely elite shooter. So putting a player like him on the floor really did boost kind of their ceiling, which I think is kind of why they went out and got Gary Trent Jr. Like the idea I think is like, okay, if we get like an AJ Green type shooter with better athleticism, maybe we can get by. I don't like Green's not a good defender, and I have real questions about the team defending altogether. But I get the kind of idea. And I do think that AJ Green can be a guy that can really be a boost for them on the bench. And they can get the bench will not be as bad as it was under Griffin. And that to me is some of the upside here. Now, let's talk about what we don't like from this team. I will let you go first.
Yeah, so really the defense is the big thing. We've talked a lot about it already. I don't like Gary Trent Jr. starting. I don't like them not having that perimeter defense. You and I kind of argued about point of attack defense, and I think the jury can still be out. But on this particular team, turns out losing Drew Holiday and replacing them with not even close to Drew Holiday made a pretty big difference for them. So no point of attack defense. I think you see that in the Brook Lopez numbers. Like Brook Lopez had a much worse season last year. And I think that is like a symbiotic team thing. I don't think Brooks suddenly just stopped defending. I think Brooks suddenly had to defend a lot harder situations because Drew wasn't doing Drew stuff out there. And defense is a 5-man game, not a 1-man game. So Brook isn't going to suddenly magically recover that because Gary Trent and Dame aren't going to fix that for him. He's not getting younger. So I think we're kind of stuck with what is at best a league average-ish defense. So while I said the top 5 offense gives you a floor, the league average defense gives you a ceiling. So you get kind of stuck in this range of where like the Bucks don't want floor. The Bucks want ceiling. The Bucks want to win a title, and you can't have a cap ceiling. That's where I get stuck a little bit. Dame, I don't know. I love Dame. I've long loved Dame. The free throw rate is down. The 3-point attempt rate is down. His 3-point percentage is down. And they are trending down over like 3 years' time now. The defense seems to be getting worse. We basically have 3 years now where he was terrible for a season coming off of Olympics and he was hurt. Then he had a really good season. He had like a great season the last year in Portland. And then he was a lot closer to the hurt off of the Olympics version last year. So I don't know what to do with that. Do we still think that really great year is in there? If so, I'm wrong about the Bucks. They can be awesome, like a 60-win team maybe. I think it's somewhere in between. I think he's better than he was last year, but not quite old Dame in there. And then it's hard to guess where in between. And I'm a little worried also. Giannis played 73 games and now Olympics in the summer. This is not a dude that we get like all the games from anymore. Like he's limited. He's not on the Embiid watch as far as games played, but he's a lot closer to that end of things than I think we want to admit. You get 5 or 10 less games from Giannis on this team, you're going to lose a bunch more games that way. So I'm a little worried about the offense being capped that way, and I'm definitely worried about the defense.
I'm going to go back to your point of attack defense thing because what's funny is I actually think that this team proves both of our points. I think this team is, because you're like, aha, they got rid of Drew Holiday. And I'm like, aha, they tried to change the scheme. As kind of proof of that, you mentioned Brook Lopez, 112 defensive rating before All-Star break. After All-Star break, when Doc Rivers takes over, drops down to 110. That was really good last season. So once you put Brook Lopez back into the scheme in which he's comfortable, guess what? Things were a lot better. Now they also changed with the rotation under Doc, and that's part of the element here. It's funny, you kind of mentioned the defense is almost all of it. So what's funny with the Dame stuff is the defense was actually better when Dame was on the floor because they did a really good job of covering for him. The actual defensive on-off numbers for Damian Lillard are surprisingly like, oh, wow, they didn't get murdered. Like, that's what I expected going in, was like, this should look like they were fine in the non-Dame minutes, but the offense was good enough. And then in the Dame minutes, they got absolutely cooked. And it really wasn't that. It was more of like the other combinations weren't able to hold up. But that to me is like a much bigger concern because you've got mid is 30 and Brooks is in his mid 30s. There is a lot of noise about Brook Lopez this offseason. There was a lot of talk that the Bucks took offers and were engaged in talks with Brook Lopez. Like, I reported on those. That doesn't mean that they like are definitely going to move him. But to me, that's worrisome, because anytime that it's like, yeah, I don't know if he's going to get traded or not, that's not, you're trying to win a championship. You want to know if you got the guys or not. And the Bucks don't seem to be everybody on the same page on whether they have the same guys or not. I pulled these numbers. I thought they were really interesting just when I started looking at some stuff, because I wanted to see how did Dame and Giannis play together. I thought it was really interesting. Dame only shot 37% off of Giannis passes last season, including 30.4% from three.
Oof.
Giannis only shot 54% from two off of Dame passes. This is like a 60% guy almost every single time in the paint. So there's two ways to consider this. This is more of like a qualitative thing than a quantitative prediction. It's either these guys don't really play together as well as you would hope, and they did not figure it out last season, or, hey, they won all these games and those two guys knew together, didn't have time to figure it out. Now with another year together, they'll be able to get it together and it'll be really great. I just kind of lean towards, what if it's in the middle and it's just like a little bit better, but not good enough, and then you have any sort of slide from Brook and mid. I am very worried about the age on this team. Like, they are an aging roster, and adding DeLon and Torian doesn't help that in enough ways, or adding the young guys that they've added. I do not look at this team as they are extremely fragile. And even with the bench maybe being better this season, I don't want those guys starting if they're trying to get stops, because I think you're going to have a lot more defensive problems. Let's talk about some key numbers. And this is where I start diving into some of the win total trends, and then you'll go into the offense and defense stuff that you have projected. Just real quick, teams that have a 49.5 win total in back-to-back years, that second season, 21-13 to the under. Teams that went under the prior season, which the Bucks did, are 9-5 to the under. That's 64%. And teams that went under the previous season with a win total above 50, when they did not have a defense in the top 10. So a high win total, you went under last season, and you didn't have a good defense. 7-0 to the under in the last 13 seasons. Wow. So that to me is really important. They went 12-11 in division play. I missed the Mike Budenholzer Bucks, where I could just hammer them every single time they play a division team. That's gone. They were 8-15 against the spread versus division teams. They were 22-10 versus teams under 500. That's fine in the West. In the East, it's not good enough. You need to be sub 7 in the Western or in the Eastern Conference versus teams under 500, because you're going to play more of them and you're going to play weaker ones. They had the most losses versus sub 500 teams since 2017. If you're wondering why I care about that, that's how you build a high win total. You crushed the bad teams consistently. The Bucks were vulnerable in that aspect, and I don't see a lot of reason to suspect they're going to be better in that regard this season. What do you have them projected for offense and defense?
Yeah, so I have them as the number 5 offense, number 16 defense. So basically what we said, top 5 offense, league average defense. That's where they're at. I've got them at a net rating +3. So that puts them about 49 wins. I've got a win range 47 to 52. So if you hear that and there's a 51.5 out there, that probably should feel more like a lean under. Here's the problem. We are at the Bucks before last year had a 51 win pace or better 5 straight seasons. So that's the number. That's right at the number. Last year was the season from hell in a lot of ways. They still won 49. So I don't feel like there's a lot of buffer here. Like, I definitely don't want an over. I want nothing to do with an over here. I just don't feel like I need the under. I'm trying to be a little more cautious, I think, here. And to me, this is a team that I'm not out on them winning a title this year. I'm not out on the Bucks. I'm out on their regular season. I don't need the regular season. I will watch the regular season. I will see if Dame looks better than he did last year, see if the defense can get above average. If one or both of those things happen, I think this could be the East team to beat when we get to the playoffs. I think there is a path where that could get there. I don't need it now. I don't want to bet it now, because if I think they're going to be down in the standings a little bit, I can bet it better later. But that's why I'm kind of where you said, like, I think they're better, but not enough better. But I could get there. I'm just not there yet. I don't need to bet it right now.
Yeah, I'm a lot more confident in the under, obviously, because I got it as a 2-unit play, which isn't like massive for me, but it is enough for it to be a play. So 49 is my projection for them, and that's like fully healthy. And I just don't know why you're going to think that this team is not going to have a whole, like they have to sit their guys. They have to rest Middleton whenever he gets banged up. They have to rest Brook whenever he gets banged up. They don't really have a viable backup center. They have to rest Dame. Dame's going to have to miss 20 games. Giannis is probably going to have to miss 15, 20 games. If Giannis plays 75 plus, then sure, this is going to be a tighter race here. But even then, I'm not necessarily sure that I believe that it's going to be able to get there. I think defensively, there are some interesting kind of figures to consider with them where they were unlucky last season. They had the third best location defensive EFG based off of cleaning the glass last season. So they allowed the right shots and kept them away from good shots. They had a good opponent shot chart, but they were 11th in actual. They had real defensive problems in transition early on, but they addressed that and finished top 10. So like there was progress that was made. I'll also though, but to me, it's just like when we look at everything together combined with the age, I just think, getting back to my thesis, I just think they missed their window. Where I think the window was last year. I think they got the first coach hire wrong, and then in a panic, they got the wrong coach hire again, which is another reason why I'm not with you on Bucks title futures. It's not blanket no on Doc, but I don't understand why you would look at this roster and be like, oh, this roster will cover for Doc's rotation and tactical problems in the playoffs. I can't get there. So for me, this is a zero play on anything upside. I'm only betting downside. I'm not going to bet miss playoffs. I'm not going to bet play-in tournament. I would be a little bit interested in it. I am probably going to bet the over on 3.5 for the seeding plus 120. I like that,
especially at a plus number. I think that's sharp. I've got the East 3 to 5 seed kind of all packed together. So certainly already that would allow that to be in play. And there's another team we're just about to talk about that I love, and that puts them above the Bucks one spot, pushes them down a seed. So I definitely don't mind the over 3.5 seed.
And that's actually got something to do with another best bet. So we'll go ahead and move on there, and we'll talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Give me your 10-word thesis on the Cavs.
Elite defensive regular season formula equals my all-in East team. I'm in. This is my team. I'm betting on this pod. Over 48.5. It's a bet. 50 plus wins. Division bet plus 300. Multi-unit division bet for me. This is my favorite division bet on the board. I've got other alts. I'm in. This is my East team.
You are aware this is the third year we've done this, yes?
I am aware this is going to happen when we get to the Grizzlies too. So just buckle up. We're doing it again. I am ready to hurt again.
We're running it back. Mine is, my 10 words are, can Atkinson be what pulls it all together? I am a lean over 47.5, but I'm uneasy about it. So to set the stage, we got 48.1 is the average over under in the market. That's up about a half win from the open. So this opened around 47.5, and now there's some 48.5s in the market as well. Divisions plus 250. Seeding is 5.5. It's juiced under at minus 125. The one seed in the Eastern Conference is plus 1,800. Playoffs are minus 900 to make, plus 600 to miss. Give me what your big picture direction of this team is.
Yeah, you mentioned Atkinson. I'm excited about Kenny Atkinson. I'm excited in part because he's not JB Bickerstaff. And look, Bick did a great job with this team. We won a lot of games the last few years. He found a formula that worked with them. I have to give credit where it's due. But before he won those games, those couple of years, he was a clear bottom 5 coach for me. He's a coach that we wanted to fade badly every time we got a playoff chance to fade him. I think it's possible that he's about as floor level of a coach as there is. I don't know that he did a lot to elevate the pieces here. Atkinson has been a pretty good modern coach when given a chance. He has a very strong defensive history. He's had a modern profile offensively. I think that it's possible there's a lot of low-hanging fruit on this team that the coaching staff hasn't gotten out of them that, like you said, maybe Atkinson does. This team went 17-1 last year, right before the All-Star break. During the part when I wasn't watching, they were really good. They were really good, right? The numbers say really good. They were 12-17 afterward. And that's kind of what they've been doing, right? They keep boning us at the end of the season. We're right for like 3/4 of the year. They're like near number one in net rating and expected wins and all that in the Eastern Conference. And then they fall apart at the end, and apparently even fall apart on the last day of the season when they feel like it to try to get the better matchup, which, by the way, worked. Whatever. We can't do that again. Their core four is all locked up now. They signed up everyone long-term. I could quibble with some of the contracts, but we got everyone for 3 years now. We're here until we trade somebody. Again, there's a clear team identity. Donovan Mitchell, 28 years old. Evan Mobley, 23. Jared Allen, 26. Darius Garland, 24. These are dudes entering their primes, really, still. There is every reason for me to believe in this team the way I continually have each year we've done this. I have to like what I see here.
Okay. Is it fair to say that kind of encapsulates what we like about this team? Is that fair to say that or do you have more to say on what
I have more. This is my team, Matt. I got more. Can I
Go.
jump into what I like?
Go.
All right. So what I like is, okay, so Mitchell, 4th in minutes last year on the team. Garland, 5th. Mobley, 8th. I'm projecting 40 more games from those 3 guys on this team. That also means Les Okoro, he gone. Les Niang, not good last year. Sorry, I like him, but terrible numbers. Replacing bad minutes with really good minutes from the Stars, that's really good. Last season might not have been a season from hell for them. It was like at least a season from purgatory, and they still won 48 games. They still won a playoff series. I think the floor here is what we've been betting on. It's very high. They've been a top 7 defense 3 years in a row. I think they're a possible number 1 defense, and we know that we bet on regular season team win overs when they have great defense. The defense gets more minutes from Mobley. He was 8th in minutes on the team last year. I like Dean Wade. I like Craig Porter Jr. I think they both help the defense a lot. The offense last year dropped off from 18th to from 18th. Sorry, the offense last year dropped off from 9th to 18th. But we got a lot less Mitchell and Mobley. I think we get more there. I don't really know about Darius Garland. I don't know if there's a more with Darius Garland. We'll get back to him. But I think Donovan Mitchell is a fringe top 10 guy when healthy. We're going to get more of him. I think Jared Allen is a top 10 center. Evan Mobley, I actually thought kind of quietly broke out a little bit late. He was over 4 BPM last 28 games after his injury. His assists are up. His rebounds are up. We want him to be a star, and he doesn't feel like a star, but he's kind of just steadily improving and getting a little better each year. I just like a lot. I don't really have a lot I dislike about this team.
I don't like that they keep screwing us.
I don't like that.
So here's what I like about it. If we look back at last season, here, you were busy with another sport for a little bit. Here's kind of what happened. Got off to an okay kind of rocky start, and then Mobley and Garland both get hurt, and we're like, well, the Cavs are screwed. And instead, they really surged.
Yeah.
And then Garland and Mobley came back, and they were still winning games. And then they got a little banged up again, and then Mitchell got hurt, and that really hurt them. And that was really where our over in the division bet was lost, was when Donovan went down.
Yeah.
You mentioned top 10. I think Donovan's honestly higher. I think Donovan wasn't the 5th best player in the NBA last season. I think if Donovan had stayed healthy and the rest of the Cavs had stayed healthy, Donovan could have been considered as the 5th best player. Donovan puts up MVP level impact numbers each and every single season. And eventually, I have to believe one of these years is going to click for his team, and he's going to be in those kind of conversations because his individual performance is always kind of there. You mentioned Dean Wade. The splits for Dean Wade are absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
When he plays, they're just awesome. He just always gets hurt. I'm dead serious when I say if Mitchell and Wade had been, if Wade was healthy for the playoffs, they get past Orlando in 5 or 6. And if Wade was healthy for the second round and Mitchell had been healthy, that series is wildly different. That's how important Dean Wade is. And I know that sounds crazy. I got a bunch of numbers that'll back that up. But Mitchell and Garland, those two actually work together. Those guys win their minutes together. Mitchell and Allen, when you run Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen with shooters, that works. That formula is very simple and easy for Donovan, and it works. Mobley and Allen together, when you run a 2-big lineup, those minutes work. Garland and Mobley, when you put those two on the floor together, even when Donovan's out, they win. All of those things kind of win. They went 18-4 with the big 4 plus Max Strus last season, even when Strus did not shoot well relative to his capability. They were 17-5 when Mitchell and Allen were able to play together. alongside Strus, Wade, and Okoro. And how about this one? When Donovan Mitchell, Jared Allen, Max Strus, and Isaac Okoro, who remains unsigned, by the way, that should be noted, play together, when those four play together, 30 and 10. Like, put Mobley and Garland aside. Put Donovan Mitchell with a big that can roll to the rim and shooters with their defensive capability, 30 and 10. Atkinson, I think, I will say this. I do think you're underselling JB. Because if you remember, the Cavs went way over the year before they got Donovan Mitchell. And he really did kind of establish the changes in the structure and the development that put them in position. Again, we will return to JB in a little bit. So that's one of the reasons why I've got Atkinson as an upgrade of about 0.75 wins. That's really small. I think a playoff differential is like 5. If you were to play 82 like playoff games, it's like 5 wins. But regular season, JB was good enough and Atkinson's teams were a little bit mixed. We also don't have a good experience of Atkinson handling superstar players like Donovan Mitchell and handling this Garland deal, which is going to be a little bit complicated. But overall, I'm with you that Kenny Atkinson's very good. They won 47 games last season, despite tanking the last game of the season, despite missing Mitchell and Garland and Mobley and Allen. Like, they had so many bad injuries to their core 4 players, and they still wound up at 47 wins. This should have been an easy over for us. It should have been an easy division win. We were right last year. That just doesn't make me necessarily all that excited about this season for a couple of reasons we'll get to. What don't you like about the Cavs?
Yeah, I mean, look, we got to have short-term memories as bettors. You got to be willing to go back to the well, and I'm going to be doing that on a bunch of these teams this year. So I'm going to keep coming back to it. There's not a lot I don't like. I don't love the Jared Allen trade rumors that we're seeing out there. I prefer them to the Donovan Mitchell trade rumors. I feel like we're kind of settled on Mitchell, at least for now, maybe for this season at least. We'll see long-term. I prefer they keep Jared Allen. I like how the team is built right now. I think they probably get a little less of him one way or another. Maybe he misses a few games. If they trade him, I don't know what comes in, but I don't think I like that because I'm betting on the defense here, and trading him almost certainly makes the defense worse. So I don't know. I don't love that. I don't hate it, but it's certainly not my preference. Really, Darius Garland is what I don't like. I had Darius Garland rated as not a top 50 guard last year. I thought he was really rough. His assists are down. His turnovers are up. I talked about Evan Mobley kind of on just like the slow incline, slowly getting better. I thought Darius Garland was an all-star guard a couple years ago. Young dude. He's been on a slow decline since then. Like, I kind of thought, instinctively, he just stunk last year. He must have been hurt. Things weren't right. He got in his head. Like, you have a bad year sometimes. That's not really what I see in the numbers. Like, the numbers kind of look like he just kind of lost the curveball, and it's been a couple years and it's kind of all moving the wrong direction. You're not supposed to do that when you're this age, like entering toward your prime. So I'm baking on the big 4 here. If it's like the big 3 -1 instead of +1, I certainly like that a little less. What can you tell me about Darius Garland? That's my one unsettled point here.
So there's been about 1 million rumors that I've heard on Garland. I've heard that if you ask me what I believe at this point, I believe that Darius Garland would be perfectly happy to stay in Cleveland on a winning franchise, and he would rather play for a winning team than go have his own squad that's probably not going to win a lot of games. I think Donovan Mitchell and him get along fine personally. I don't think there's any sort of personal conflict with Darius Garland. I think there is a little bit of basketball discomfort. I think that Donovan Mitchell may be in a place where he's kind of like, look, when you just give me a big and shooters, it makes sense and I can kill it. Now, I don't know that that's the best thing for them in the playoffs because those isocentric systems are really easy to guard eventually. But then again, the Mavericks did make the conference finals with what is essentially the the finals with what is the Cavaliers model here. Hey, let's play really elite defense and then have isocentric Donovan Mitchell be awesome.
Yeah,
like,
well, and have isocentric Donovan Mitchell be Luka Doncic instead. That's an important part of the equation we're missing here.
I think the gap between Luka and Donovan could be shorter. I think Donovan's really good. I mentioned all these combos that worked. Garland and Mitchell and Allen and blah, 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 blah. This is the problem. Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, and Allen had a -7 net rating last season. those four didn't work together. Now, Justin Rowan, who does works over at has a Cavaliers podcast. Rowan's great at Cavzanado on Twitter. He looked at the overall numbers since they've been together. Like they're a +7 overall across the year. So like last year was just really weird, but it's a very concerning trend. Like if these four just don't know how to play together, if Mitchell's evolving more towards needing to be surrounded by 3 shooters and a big, and Garland's less comfortable with trying to and that to me is kind of the signal here, is that Garland did not know how to balance being aggressive with playing next to Donovan. He doesn't know how to do it, where he's not a spot up shooter, so he can't just play off ball, but you can't take the ball out of Donovan's hands. Mobley, I think, complicates the spacing. Now, Mobley made big jumps in that regard, especially in the back half of the season. And I think you can probably definitively say that like if they traded Garland, you would be good with Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen. Like that combo, I think, works at least for another couple of seasons until Mobley is big enough and ready to take over as full-time 5. That to me makes a lot of sense, right? I am a little concerned that this team, that these four don't know how to play together. Now, Atkinson might come in and make it all work. He might just figure out the combinations to do that. But it is very dependent on some of these. And look, again, Strus underperformed from a shooting perspective. He added the spacing last year, but not the actual shooting. So if Strus puts in a great shooting season, or if Dean Wade, they put into the starting lineup and they just play him, I can see a lot of ways that we get to the kind of optimism that you have for them. But I do just have a little bit of concern. And Dean Wade, again, is so important for them, and he's always hurt. And that is a real big issue. One more problem, no one was good at the rim last year. Garland was 15th percentile at 55%.
Yeah, he's not good.
Max Strus was 18th percentile when he's cutting to the rim at 56%. Karis LeVert, who had a phenomenal season playmaking, and Karis was so good for them and really helped them last year. That was, I think, Karis's best season on both ends of the floor. Yeah, he still shot 58% at the rim, which is 25th percentile. Even Donovan was only 53rd percentile at 63%. That's down for him. Like, if you're not going to have maximum spacing, you got to make the twos, fellas. So that to me is a little...
those things tied, though? Aren't you not making the twos because you don't have the spacing? I think that's a chicken egg thing, isn't it?
But without Mobley and Garland, I feel like they were running so many 3-wing lineups.
You're right.
That's part of the reason that I have some concern for it. I only have one trend, and this one's pretty simple. Teams that finished in the back half of the league on offense and made the playoffs the prior season. So if you were 15th or worse and you made the playoffs last season, 26-12 to the under at 68%.
Interesting.
That's including a few ties. So,
that's interesting. I would have guessed the other way on that trend, because I would assume that implies you must have been a very strong defensive team, and defense tends to be a little stickier year to year.
Yeah, it actually turns out that doesn't necessarily save you here's the key on that, if the expectations are high.
Sure, you're right.
That's the playoff kind of stipulation there. That's where that kind of winds up. If you can guarantee me 70 games, I'm not even kidding me. If you just told me that Donovan Mitchell and Dean Wade played 70 games next season, I would be with you on the over. That's how much I believe.
This podcast needs to be like on Dean Wade's Wikipedia page. He's never had so much good things said about him. Let me get my numbers here. I have the Cleveland Cavaliers as the number 10 offense, number 3 defense. There are 3 teams in the entire NBA that I have as a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. Here's the list: the Boston Celtics, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. You want to be on that list. Top 10 offense and defense. That's pretty good. So I have them at net +5. That's a 54-win team. That is my non-Celtics most wins of any NBA team. That's where I'm at on the Cavs, and partly not any other great teams out there. I have them equal to OKC, so we'll get to OKC later. They've been at 47 expected wins or better 3 straight years. We only need to get over 48.5 here. They were expected wins 55 2 years ago. That was number 2 in the NBA, even though they had a late slowdown with some injuries. Now they keep going under the expected wins. Again, I'm coming back to coaching there. I'm putting a little bit of that on JB and on the construction, and I think Kenny can get more out of them here. So let me jump into my other ways to play, because I got a lot of angles here. And if you are excited like I am about the Cavs, I can talk through a few options here. So over 48.5, there's a -105 out there. I like that as is. If you like them, but maybe you're more where you're at, Matt, you like them, but you don't love them, how about under 5.5 seed? That's a minus 125 out there. We're probably looking at like 46 wins there. So you maybe buy a couple wins down. I think that's the cautious way to play. I'm not going to play that way because I'm aggressive here. I'll go the other way. You can play 50 plus wins. That's only one win more at plus 150. I'm going to play that and skip the minus 105 over 48.5. One more win for 50% or 55 cents on my juice. Like I'm definitely taking that one. My win total for this team, my win range is 50 to 58. My entire win range hits the over and the alt over 50 plus. So I like that one. Cavs division, this is going to be crazy, but I'm just going by my numbers here. The Cavs are plus 300. That's implied 25%. My numbers on the two teams we've talked about so far, I have the Cavs at 67% to win the division. That's a minus 200 versus a plus 300. Now, look, that does not mean go put your mortgage on it. My numbers often are very different. When they're very different like this, they tell me bet multiple units on a thing. So I like the Cavs here. Did you talk yet about your Bucks dual outcome? You didn't say that one yet, did you, on the division?
No, I was waiting for you. I'll go ahead and pipe in with that one. You have to be very careful with this. So there's two different bets you can get in divisions. You can get exact, which is the exact number one, exact number two. Or you can get the dual forecast, which is either one of them to finish, like they need to finish 1 and 2 in either order. Right. You can get Bucks Cavs either order at minus 130. That to me is my best bet for the Cleveland Cavaliers and honestly the Milwaukee Bucks as well. That I could be down on the Bucks and I can be concerned about the Cavs, and I still do not see any of the other teams in this division finishing top two. So I'll take Bucks Cavs any order 1-2 in the division at minus 130.
So I don't hate that one, but I will push back on it because I have a bet, an escalator bet effectively, that kind of flies in the face of it a little bit. I think the Pacers are about just a touch below the Bucks where I have them. My caution on the Bucks and my optimism on the floor for the Pacers offensively, we'll talk about them shortly. I have them pretty close. I prefer the Bucks, but now, like you said, I don't want the 1-2. I have the Cavs far out ahead of both of them. I want the exact. Give me Cavs number 1, Pacers number 2, plus 1,200. So I'm basically taking my division plus 300, and I'm going to do just a nibble here. A nibble on Cavs 1, Pacers 2. Basically, I'm sticking with the Cavs number 1, but I'm taking Pacers head-to-head against the Bucks at 12-1. I don't want the 1 seed here. Boston's too good. I don't need that in the portfolio. I don't need that there. If you're looking at a player sort of thing or an award, we'll get to those later. I don't think it's Donovan Mitchell MVP. I think that's a conversation. I think you either want Kenny Atkinson Coach of the Year. That seems like a very strong fit here if this fits the way I like it as a top 2 seed, new coach thing, or it might be Evan Mobley Defensive Player of the Year. That's the two that I have my eye on when I get to work on those. That might be other angles here. And I mean, this is in many ways setting up to be this year's Memphis Grizzlies. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. My difference between Cavs and Bucks is only 1.4. So I can't get into, that's not enough for me to, even with my concerns about the Bucks injuries, like injuries are random. And it's like the Cavs were so injured last year. I've actually done a little bit of work on this, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me currently, but I can tell you, don't bank on injury regression. It doesn't happen. I looked at 75th percentile teams in injury in games lost over the last 13 seasons. And the result was about 51% to the under.
Yeah. Well, and to be clear, the injury work that I do is not banking on, I'm banking on regression to the mean, not past the mean. I think a lot of times we expect regression to go past the mean. We only played 50 games last year. We'll probably get a full 80 games this year. That's not how stats work. So I'm banking on okay, where you been the last 4 seasons? What's a typical outcome for you? Let's get you back toward that. That even still there, that's where I still think we're getting 40 more games of those guys. It's not guaranteed, but I think that I have to factor that in, and that's worked well with me in the past.
You have to get all your bets in now because you have to go do NFL. I have the luxury of being able to wait for preseason, and I will tell you that if I watch 2 Cavaliers preseason games and see a remarkably shifted offense, I will join Brandon on the division bet. That will be an absolute ad that I will get to. But for right now, I'm in. Yeah, I lean over, but I want to kind of wait and see how this looks. One team I do not want to wait on, and that is my favorite. Cavs are Brandon is all in on a very good team on both sides of the ball. I am all in on a team that lost the most games in a row of any team in NBA history. This is officially a Detroit basketball podcast. 10-word thesis on the Detroit Pistons. I will say this: actual NBA players at the right time with the right market. Over 24.5, 5-unit max play for me. I'm all in on the Detroit Pistons. What's your 10 words, Brandon?
I don't need 10 words. Don't confuse improvement with good. I lean over 24.5 if I had to pick a side, but I'm passing, and I'm going to try to talk you down off the ledge a little bit here.
It's too late, sir. Those bets are already in.
All right, well, I'm going to talk our listeners down then.
24.7 is the average in the market. That's up 0.8 wins from open. This number has taken money on the over. Plus 350 to make the play in. I've thought I will tell you, you're going to hear that from some of our buckets people. I don't mind it because they have the same kind, like they adopt Brandon's approach of like, if you like it, then X. I can't get there with where I've got these teams projected. They are 40,000 to win the division. So I would not take that. Their seeding is 12.5 plus 105 to the over, minus 125 to the under, which is kind of an interesting number in terms of how, like, I'm a little bit surprised it was there, but it does kind of show you where Charlotte and especially the Wizards are in this conference. All right, Brandon, tell me about the big picture with the Detroit Pistons.
So look, I'm going to try to tie you down a little bit on the Pistons, but it's going to come off strange. I really like a lot about the Pistons. I'm excited about this team, but I think I have to temper the expectations a little bit. I think I'm where you're at a year from now, maybe. I think you're a year early, perhaps. So Pistons have not topped 23 wins in any of the last 5 seasons. 23 wins. That is a low bar. Haven't gotten there. However, a lot of really bad minutes gone. James Wiseman gone. Killian Hayes fired to the moon, then brought back to tank the Brooklyn Nets back down to earth. Bojan Bogdanovic, terrible last year. He's gone. Kevin Knox gone. Bagley, Fournier, playing Olympics ball. Great over there. Not good over here. It's a lot of bad minutes that are gone. They brought in adults. Tobias Harris, adult in the room, can do Tobias Harris stuff on the Pistons, not the Sixers. Ain't nobody want to see him playing in May for the Sixers. We like to see him spacing the court and doing some nice Tobias Harris stuff for the Pistons. That's where he belongs. Malik Beasley, I don't want to see you playing point of attack defense for the Bucks. I do want to see you spacing the court, hitting some open shots, adding a little bit of shooting for the Pistons. Perfect. Simone Fontecchio, they got him on a great deal, bringing him back. I think he was really good last year. I don't know what Utah thought getting rid of him. And is JB Bickerstaff an adult in the room that Monty Williams didn't appear to be the last couple of years? I don't really know. I kind of thought Monty did all right, and everyone else vehemently disagrees with me. So I think there's a lot of possible low-hanging fruit there for JB to get to. They do have their pick this year traded, quote-unquote. It is top 13 protected. I think Detroit would love to lose that pick. I think Detroit would love nothing more than to send that pick right out. Like, it's gone already. I think they want winning culture. I think if they were close to it, I don't think they're tanking to get out of it. I think they're a team that's like, sweet, see you later, pick. Let's make the play in and lose. Let's do this, baby. So I think they want to win. I'm excited about a bunch of stuff. I have more notes on what we like than what we don't like. I set the stage well for you here. I've set you up for your 5-unit bet. I'm just going to pull it back a little bit later.
Okay. JB's going to make a huge differential here. So the biggest reason is this. Last season, they were 24th in location EFG offensively. That's the big problem with the Pistons is their offense is absolutely fucking abysmal. 24th in location EFG, 28th in actual. So if you're going to have a low expected range, you better have shooters like the Phoenix Suns, where it's like, yeah, no, we take bad shots because we have tough shot takers and they're awesome at it. That's not the Pistons. Guess what Bickerstaff's elite at? 8th, 7th, 11th, 1st last season. This is where he shines. He gets his teams to take the right shots. The biggest thing, if you are deficient in NBA talent, you can game wins just by playing a smarter brand of basketball and making sure that you're not wasting your time. Don't waste possessions. JB won't do that. I think Monty did a lot of that last season. When I went back and I watched a lot of these possessions, maybe here's like the generous interpretation of where Monty was at. And I think Monty Williams is a great playoff coach. But here's what I know is that Monty Williams didn't want to take the job. They said that. And then they offered him $50 million and he was like, well, okay. And so he took it. And you could just tell that Monty didn't think he thought it was beyond repair. I don't think Monty wanted to coach last season after losing the Suns job. And that's okay. I think Monty could be another good coach for a playoff team down the line. I think that's totally possible. I don't think Monty Williams is a bad coach. I think he was the wrong coach for the Detroit Pistons. I think JB Bickerstaff is the right coach for them. You need to engineer easy stuff. So much I went back and I watched film. I did 2,000 possessions of Detroit Pistons offense. That's how much I love you people. And so much of it was just like, it was Cade trying to figure out, can I beat this guy? Like, can I get past him? Can I get first step? And the answer usually was honestly no, because they weren't even running pick and roll. That's not Cade's game. Cade isn't Russell Westbrook. First step downhill. But Cade made huge strides with his jumper. The rim has got to get better, and that's my big concern with him and Ivy. But there's a lot to like about Cade's offense. And as a guy that went number one because he's a guy that plays winning basketball on both ends and makes the guys around him better, that you saw that in the second half of the year, along with you saw him actually being able to hit jumpers, which was a big concern I didn't think he was going to be able to get to. And he made a big leap in that regard. Yeah. They had as many. I love EPM. Brandon loves BPM. You can pick whichever one you want. They had as many 0+, so net neutral or better, EPM players as Chicago. Their worst players were way worse and dragged them down. But if you look at like the actual distribution of how many players were a positive or a negative, they were even with Chicago, who was in the 30s. Cade, Beasley, Asar, Harris, and either Jalen Duren or Isaiah Stewart. Duren fits better. Stewart's on-off numbers are way better. Either one of those, that's viable. It's Cade, and you're giving him two NBA players that know where to be on a floor, that know how to cut, space, move, flare, and knock down shots. That alone is a massive upgrade over where they've been the last two seasons. Here's a crazy one. I looked at this, and I could not believe it. I could not believe this stat, Brandon. Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Stewart, and Jalen Duren, when that four was on the floor together with Stewart at the stretch four, they won their minutes, and it wasn't an insignificant amount. Wow. There is the foundation here of a not bad team. Not good, a not bad team. And we have a number here at 24.5. This open 22.5, which is where I hit it, is 24.5 now. I'm in.
Yeah, look, normally I come on in like mid-July when the numbers pop, and I loved Detroit then. I texted Jim, all the J's. I texted them all. I was in on Detroit. I was talking about play-in odds for them. I would have hit the 22.5. That would have been one of my first bets, and I would still feel great about that. If it was available, I'd play that right now. I like a lot of the improvement signs here. The number moving up a little bit makes me a little more tepid here. I love the draft. We talked about that. I love Ron Holland long-term for them. I think he fits well. I love Bobby Clinton, who they got in the second round. They were both top 10 guys for me. I think Ron Holland possibly could end up the number one talent in the draft if things go well. I like Cade. I like Asar. I like Duren, not Stewart, but I think those three are a very good core. They've got some cooking there. Last year, they had a 9-17 stretch. It was not great, but it's not like abject terrible, aka they were 5-51 the rest of the season. 9-17, not 5-51. Notably, they finished expected 20 wins. They only won 14. That's why, I don't know what that means. I kind of take it to mean I felt like Monty was kind of doing some stuff with the not horrendous players on the team. If you look at the minutes played, 7 through 12 on number of minutes played, gone. That's the terrible guys you're talking about. So we're not just getting, I'd love it better if they were the 1 to 5. We're not replacing the bench guys here, but we're replacing bad stuff with competent stuff. It's the Bucks thing that we talked about, but in a much more meaningful way because it was the terrible Pistons last year, and there's a lot more room to improve. I think maybe they get a little less Jaden Ivey. He was number 1 in minutes. He hasn't been good. I'm not in on Ivey anymore. Less Ivey, less Isaiah Stewart. He was 5th in minutes. I think that's the direction the roster goes a little, but I'm good with that. Cade, post All-Star break, jumped to 4.0 BPM. That's like All-Star status, Cade. And the main difference is he hit 2.4 threes on 6.2 attempts per game. That is volume and percentage. That's 40% on a leap of volume. That is a confidence boost. And you have to pay attention to volume, because when guys are shooting more, it's because the coaches have told them they can do that, and because they're proving they can hit those shots. So I think, Matt, if you're in as much as you are on them, I think Cade for most improved definitely has to be something to have your eye on for them. He already kind of made that leap last year. The other thing I like here is, maybe not yet, Fred Vinson, the shot coach, the shot doctor, right? What team in the league better needs a shot doctor than the team with Cade, with Ron Holland, who's a shot away from being like, maybe could have been the number 1 pick this year in a bad draft. Asar Thompson, great defensive numbers last year, really good, doesn't have a role in offense. Hey, if you could teach a couple of those guys how to shoot, that'd be real good. I'd like that a lot for this team. I like a lot about the team. I just don't know if I like it enough yet. I think it's like a later in the season or next year team. What don't you like about the team? Is there anything you don't like about this team, Mr. 5 Units Detroit Pistons?
I mean, they're bad. They're bad. So like, look, this isn't my biggest delta, I don't think, in what I have projected versus the number. I have them at 29.5. I will probably play a small unit on them to hit 30 plus wins in case everything goes right for them. I think it's probably worth it, because if you get out of that muck and you're like, well, wait, we're not going to be able to get a great lottery pick here.
Right.
We might as well play it out.
May as well win.
And you can go ahead and pick it up. It's not enough. 30 wins is not enough to get me into play-in tournament, though.
No, not
close. That's not a place I'm interested in going. Ivy was 22nd percentile at the rim, and Cade was 7th percentile. They got to make some fucking layups. Like, they just got to make some layups here. You cannot be that bad at the rim if your offense is going to get anywhere towards decent. It is an interesting question of which unit's going to improve more, because they were 27th in offense and they felt worse a lot of the time, and they were 25th in defense. So that actually feels worse than I thought. Than if you'd asked me to guess where they were, I've been like, they're probably 22nd, 23rd. So like 2 slots lower. I would have guessed they were bottom 10. At the same time, I do think that, like, having, again, NBA competent people for, it's like you're relying on Tobias Harris and Malik Beasley to be better on defense. No, I'm relying for them to be like, hey, don't stand there. Stand over here. You just need guys that know what they're doing to be able to provide that kind of guidance. And Tobias and Malik do know where they need to be. Those guys are bad defenders because they are physically bad defenders. They are not bad defenders because they are mentally bad defenders. They are not guys that, like, just don't pay attention. Now, Beasley, I think, was there, and he's gotten better. This is one of the benefits of just, like, years in the league. Like, Andre Drummond was a space cadet, and now Andre Drummond, like, doesn't miss a rotation because Andre just knows what to do. You just do it enough, you wind up doing it. He's not a great defender, but he's fine. And so with the Pistons, having those kind of guys, I just think improves the floor quite considerably. You're going to hear me talking on these podcasts a lot about, there's a number of ways you can do it. You can do lag for flag. You can do capture the flag. I like that one quite a lot. Some people like wave the white flag. Not as much of a fan of that one as I am. I know you like that one. But I am not there. But I don't think that Detroit, I genuinely think if you're going to have paid the money that you paid Monty Williams to go away, and you're going to pay the money that you paid to get Tobias Harris and Malik Beasley, if you're going to do all of that, you don't want to be an embarrassment. And I think it's very tough to kind of get there. Do you want to go over the things you don't like? Because I can imagine, but we can go over them if you want.
Yeah, no, I mean, I want to talk it through, because it's why I want to temper some of the expectation here and kind of talk about why did I talk back the position I thought I was going to have a month ago. And it's the big picture stuff. I like a lot of the details. I like where things are going. Big picture. You know how I'm like focused on offense, defense. So I'll just do my key numbers here too. I have them 27th on offense, 26th on defense. It's better. It's better than what they've been. It's not dead last. It's not good enough, though. It still is net -6. It gives them 25 wins. It puts them 22 to 28 wins. So kind of like right in this range. And I think they probably would slightly go over, but the offense, bottom 5 offensive rating 4 seasons in a row. That's because you got a lot of young handlers. Like, that's the thing that I come back to with these previews. We're still going to get way too much Jaden Ivey. We're going to get, for winning games this year, way too much Ron Holland. That is not going to make for good offense on this team. Cade hopefully can be good, hopefully really good. This is going to be a lot of that other stuff. Now, I do think adding Tobias and Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., if he can still play, I think adding that does raise the floor. There's way less awful offense. I like the offensive improvement better. What threw me off is I was with you. I was like, the defense was probably like bad, not terrible. Defense was terrible. The defense has been bottom 7 3 years in a row, and I don't see a lot of hope. Jalen Duren I like, but is not good defensively. I do not like Isaiah Stewart. I definitely don't like them together. The new guys, I don't think help that much. I think having Tobias out there as an adult is somewhat helpful. I don't know that the defense gives me much optimism. So now I'm relying on, if I really want to like the team, I got to just rely on these young guys producing like 20th best offense. And it's possible, but I can't quite get there. Then the last thing that really threw me is JB Bickerstaff. We've talked about him on multiple teams here now. I think next year is when I want the Pistons. JB Bickerstaff is usually a year 2 developmental guy. He's great for a young developmental team. Here's what he's done. In Memphis, 15-48, his first season with them, 33-49, year 2. In Cleveland, 22-50, 44-38 in year 2. I think I would take right now whatever number you gave me for Detroit over next year. That's the Pistons that I want. I'm worried about them this year. I think it's too soon. They've had 5 straight unders. They've had a 25.2 win or worse pace 7 straight seasons. 24.5, it's doable. It's right there. But like, I think you're going to get to April and have to be rooting for 2 last Detroit Pistons win to get you over the 5-unit hump. And they might get there. I think they probably will. They're going to want those wins. I don't need that in my life. I don't need Pistons basketball in April getting me over the last hump there.
That's fair. That's fair. I will note this on the defensive side of stuff. Do you want to know what the secret is?
I do.
Take out James Wiseman and Killian Hayes.
It's a great secret.
So Asar, Cade, and Killian without Wiseman played 259 minutes, 119 defensive rating. The 4 of them together played 82 minutes with a 119 defensive rating. Where's the really bad one here? There's one that was like
that's not the really bad one yet at 119.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Here's the actual. All 4 of them together was actually, got that wrong. Was 136.8.
Oh, that seems bad.
136.8. When Cade played with Killian and Wiseman before Oscar got more minutes, 142.9. That was only 10 minutes though. However, when you go down and you go, okay, let's take Thompson and Cade, 114. Not good.
I can live with that.
So that's my honestly. A great cap on this, Brandon, is a very you thing. They got rid of really shitty players. Yep. This is addition by subtraction. Just getting rid of Killian and Wiseman, I think, helps their floor incredibly. Absolutely. And I don't like to just like dump on these guys, but I the numbers are what they are. You can't win when they're on the floor. You can't defend, and they're a much better team now. Okay, so you've not talked me off of it. I'm still in. I think I'm going to take 30 plus wins as well for a small.
What's the number on the 30 plus?
Detroit Pistons 30 plus wins plus 230. I'll take that.
Oh, all right, that's not bad.
All right, we're going to roll through the last 2 here pretty quickly. So Indiana Pacers. You kind of talked about how you want them. You think they're closer to the Bucks. Give me the 10 words on the Indiana Pacers.
This team will actually play Halliburton, unlike the Olympics, and they'll get elite offense when they do it. Over 46.5, but pass.
Mine is, are we sure they'll be better? I lean under 46.5. If this gets up to 47.5, or if I wait and see at 48.5, I'm absolutely gonna crash on the under. Win total is 46.7. It's up a half win from open. So this opened closer to 46. There was actually, I think, a 46 flat in the market, and as well as a 45.5, and it's now up to 46.7, heading towards 47 wins. Seeding 6.5 with a plus 120 to the over, minus 145 to the under. So they are expected to be a playoff team in the Eastern Conference. Divisions plus 375. Playoffs minus 600, yes, plus 425 to the no. Brandon, give me the big picture on the Pacers.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a team we know pretty well. We saw the shock Eastern Conference Finals run. I thought they probably played Boston better than anyone in the playoffs. I do have some kind of Blazers or Hawks Conference Finals run vibes here, so we'll see where this goes. Number 2 offense last year, even with the Haliburton injury. Number 2 in pace. They're a league pass team. They make everyone else look great and fun. They're a fun team. We like them. You're running it back. You got Siakam all year. You hopefully get a little bit more Haliburton this year. He's certainly rested coming back from Paris because they didn't feel like they needed him over there. Got that gold medal anyways. This was our team last year. We love this team. We cashed on this team. I think the market caught up. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I like about this team. Look, this is the best offense in the NBA. And you could say, like, well, actually, the Boston Celtics finished with the number 1. That's fine. They were the most consistent offense in the NBA. I am telling you night to night, this is the toughest offense to face in the NBA. And everyone struggles with it, including the Boston Celtics. They swept this team in the playoffs, but if you went back and asked the Celtics what that series was like, they'd be like, it was not fun. Because the Pacers dictate pace constantly, and they always create great looks, and that will continue to happen. Tyrese Haliburton is not respected enough in NBA discussions for being the primary engine of the best offense in the league in the best offensive era of all time. That needs to matter more. I'm not saying he's the best offensive player of all time. I'm saying what he has done as the engine needs to be respected and validated more, as well as making the goddamn conference finals, despite everyone thinking they sucked for 2 rounds. If you can't put up 120 on this team, you're going to lose most of the time. Only the teams that have real balance, that can score in bunches and defend at an elite level, were really able to beat them consistently. They made a small bump in defensive rating. They got out of the bottom 20 after the All-Star break. They got up to 18th. I don't know how real I feel like that is, especially after what we saw in the playoffs, but it is possible that they're not going to be absolute garbage defensively for the entire season. I think they'll probably have a month where it's like, oh man, the Pacers did not defend at all in December, January, November, whatever. I like the upside of this team. Bennett Mathurin should be back after the injury. They've got Jarris Walker, who I thought looked really good in Summer League. Yep. Furphy is getting a lot of buzz as a rookie that could really make an impact. And Hallie got a lot of learning experiences. Yes, he didn't play in the Olympics, but he got to be around those guys, and that's always a really positive experience. On top of that, like, he played in the conference finals. He got to see what facing real defenses from a playoff level standpoint looks like. And while he struggled at times, he also responded at every single turn. So Hallie should be better this season. And hopefully, please God, he's going to be healthy, since he had that weird dip that cost him a lot of honestly credentials that he should have gotten. So I think there's a lot to like here, Brandon. I'm just not moved towards the idea of them being significantly better than last season, when their win total did not necessarily reflect how good they were.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much in line on this one. Haliburton's awesome. Top 10 guy for me. Siakam, I thought, was really good with Indiana. Similar to what we said about Giannis, like a slightly smaller role, but he was more efficient there. And I think it's a really strong fit for him, like playing the fast pace, running in transition. I thought they were more balanced, like you said, later in the season, a little bit less offense, a little bit less spacing. I don't love that once they got rid of Buddy Hield and then didn't have Mathurin anymore. So hopefully that spaces out a little bit better. But getting Nembhard in the lineup defensively with Siakam, I think, helped. TJ McConnell, I thought, was fantastic. I had him on my all-bench team, like first team all-bench. I was going to note Jarris Walker as well. I don't know if he can even play. That's how deep this team is. But I like what he could add versatility-wise defensively. I think I'd be excited about kind of moving on from Obi Toppin eventually to put him in that place in those minutes and add a little bit more there. I'm just going to go right into what I don't like. I think it's a bit top heavy after the 2 stars. There's a lot of depth, but not a lot of great depth. And most particularly, I'm worried about Miles Turner. He's really the only plus defender on the team outside of Jarris Walker, if he even gets enough minutes. There's not much depth behind him. Losing Jalen Smith, I think, is real on this team. And Turner had a pretty healthy year last year. By my injury expectation, I'm putting like 15 to 30 games less Miles Turner. If that happens, oh man, this defense could be really rough. Like, you think it's bad with them. What about without? I thought Nesmith was really bad in the playoffs. He was in my top 3 playoffs least valuable player. I think Nembhard was awesome in the playoffs, but I'm a little worried it was a bit fluky. He's 48% on threes. I think it's a little Caleb Martin here. I'm not sure that he's as good as we think that he looked like, and he got the bigger contract now. I think it's 2 guys, really. I think it's Halliburton and Siakam, and I feel like that it probably is the number 1 offense. I have the number 2 offensively, but I think the defense is so bad that it caps the ceiling, caps you from getting into the 50s, caps you in the playoffs probably, unless a lot of things break your way like they did last year. That's like my team comparisons for them, like the Pacers last year, the Kings the year before that, the Hawks the year before that. Like, these are all teams that make a lot of sense. Oh yeah, really fast, lots of offense, really bad defense, lose the games that actually matter when we get there. I think that's what the Pacers are. That kind of caps them into the middle range where there's a high floor with the offense, there's a low ceiling with the defense. I think 46 is about right. So I end up just kind of not really having a way to play them, except that I do think that they're close enough to the Bucks. That's why I like that 1-2 Cavs-Pacers mix. Otherwise, that's all I got in Indiana.
Yeah, they were a 47-win team in the games Hallie played last season. That to me was like very striking that they finished with 47, even though he missed time. It wasn't like, oh, they were a 54-win team when Hallie played and then he missed some time. They were a 47-win team. They were 46 when Hallie and Pascal played. Like, they were actually a little bit. Now, that's getting used to one another after a big midseason trade. They could be better. They learn how to play together, I think. But it's not enough to like get me excited about the over here. I don't look at this team and go 50 wins. Their third center is James Wiseman. So you mentioned Miles Turner. Here's a very significant factor. Any game where Miles Turner does not play, because they got rid of Jalen Smith, which I thought was not a good move. Jalen Smith as a very positive player. Wiseman was legitimately one of the worst impact players in the league, and he has been almost every season in the league. So if Miles Turner is out, it's Isaiah Jackson, and then it's Wiseman. So the idea is, well, Wiseman's not going to play. But if Miles Turner's hurt, he is. That's not good.
Not good.
And again, I don't want to put this all on Wiseman. It's just like that's what the impact says, and it's really going to be significant towards their chances of winning. Hallie did make a deep run. He actually came away with an injury, was reported today from Team USA, even though he didn't play, which makes sense. Like, you practice, it's okay for him to get an injury. It's not, it's like, aha, you didn't play and you got hurt. But like, guys get injured. He's always been a guy that kind of like he's smaller, so he's going to be a little bit more susceptible to some of these injuries. That's really concerning. Siakam also just got paid. He got the contract that he wanted. Maybe he responds to that by like living up to it. That's what some players do now, but it's at least like a little bit of concern. I'll do some numbers here. Teams with a bottom 10 defense that made the playoffs, 12-6 to the under the following season, the last 13 seasons. Teams with a top 3 offense are 19-11 to the under overall the following season, 5-0 with bottom 10 defenses. So if you were a top 3 offense with a bottom 10 defense, it's 5-0 to the under in the last 13 seasons. Last 10 seasons, rather. That's specifically the last 10. If you like the absolute high mark on this team, and you think, if you're just like, if you listen to this, I'm like, I don't care, they're going to be 55 wins, blah, 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 blah. Hallie's 100-1 for MVP. Godspeed. I bet last year did not even get near home, didn't have any CLV on it. I wouldn't recommend it, but like, that's the number on it. Do you have any, or like, I think we can move on, I think, because
I would say the same. Like, I think if you love the Pacers, that's the angle, but that's make sure you're playing that at a book where you can cash out, because I think your angle is going to get you onto like an ESPN conversation for a week, and then you're up to like 15-1, look at my CLV, and then your ticket lost anyway. Like, my specialty, I've had to learn to get away from these. I think that's Halliburton. I think it's deserving to be in the conversation. I can't see it getting home. His defense and their defense is too bad to get him not high enough for that to hit, I think.
10 words on the Bulls.
Not as tanky as it seems, and still in no man's land. And I actually think that the Bulls are an over. My Chicago Bulls, over 27.5. It's a bet for me.
Wow, we're up against each other. This is our first one we're Oppo on. Even if they were tanking, they should project under. That's my 10. Under 30.5 2-unit play for me. Average lines 28.3, down 0.8 from open. This opened closer to 30. It's now down to 28.5 in some markets, moving towards 27.5. Not surprising to me. 25,000 for the division if you're feeling really spicy about Kobe White. Playoffs are plus 700, yes. Minus 1,200, no. Let's just do what we like here. What do you like about this team?
I mean, I think that they are not as tanky as it seems. Like I said in the thesis. So basically, you move on from DeMar, you move on from Caruso. I think they effectively are replacing those minutes. You're going to get back, presumably, unless you tell me otherwise, or unless something comes otherwise. Presumably, you're getting more Zach LaVine back. Probably like 2,000 minutes of LaVine, who I think is the better player of the two and is better without DeMar because there's more Zach that way. I think that a lot offsets the loss of DeMar. Josh Giddey. I've dumped on a lot of Josh Giddey. Giddey was fantastic down the stretch. I thought he was really good in Olympic ball. From March forward, 15, 7, 6, 4.7 BPM, 119 offensive rating. His shooting numbers were up. He's improved over the years. He's only 21 years old. Like, there's a lot to like about Giddey from a regular season floor standpoint. And I know we've been focusing on all the bad Giddey stuff because he's been a Thunder player. You don't need to worry about the playoffs. When you're on the Bulls, you can just be a regular season guy. And I think Giddey is a pretty good floor-raising regular season guy in a way that Caruso wasn't going to be, really. So I think that offsets those minutes also. So basically, we get DeMar out, Caruso out, somehow no picks back in the deals. I have no idea how my Bulls managed to pull it off again. No picks back for the two assets on the team. But I think it offsets LaVine and Giddey. I think the feeling on the team overall still sucks. It's actually me leaning into the Bulls' nihilism. I would love it to go under. I love the Bulls to be terrible. I love a tank. Give me a tank. Give me some picks. Give me some ping pong balls. Give me Cooper Flag. I think they're still kind of like stuck in the middle a little bit. I think ownership wants to win games. I think there are worse teams in the conference. And I think they're still going to end up kind of in like the low 30s range. And that's where I'm at with the Bulls this year.
So Braxton, who we work with, when they made the first trade, he was like, I think they're going young. And I was like, they'll never go young, Braxton. They're always going to chase it. They're definitively going young. Like, there's no question here that they're going young. They are unable to move those guys, Nikola Vucevic and Zach LaVine currently. Here's a big thing, though. You kind of mentioned, like, you're getting back Zach LaVine, and you might get, like, good minutes from him. Every minute he plays well increases the likelihood of him being traded, which makes it easier for them to go under. The only way they go over is if LaVine plays the entire year. It's the only way. Io was really good last season. I love Io DeSumnu. 63, 44, 40 were his splits from. He was 63% at the rim, 44% mid-range, 40% from three. 56, 58, 85 percentiles on those. He was 63rd percentile on defense. They have an actual direction now. Like, they drafted Matas Buzelis, who looks like he's going to be a really fun young player. They're building young. They bought back in on Patrick Williams. Like, it's very apparent. It's going to be like young Josh Giddey, young Kobe White, young Patrick Williams, young Matas Buzelis. Like, that's the core. That's where they're headed. The young teams don't win. We know this. We know this definitively. Unless you're the Thunder, young teams do not win. Jalen Smith and Josh Giddey are both plus players, but I think Giddey might be negative this year because I don't think he'll be augmented by the shooting that was around him last year, which I think was like a really big part of that. Kobe, Io, Patrick Williams, Buzelis, and Jalen Smith, that's fun as hell. I'm in on that lineup. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. They're just not going to win any games. I'll talk about what I don't like. Look, you and I are in the same place on DeMar DeRozan. Like, we're in the same place. Like, it's not like you and I look at, like, right. You and I are not DeMar DeRozan guys. He's not the type of player that you and I gravitate towards. He helps you win games in the regular season. He just does. There's almost no way to kind of argue he doesn't do that. That was him and Caruso account for 16.6 earned wins last season by EPM. And that's gone. They were top 2 in EPM on the team and earned wins, and they're gone. They literally lost their 2 most valuable players. I don't know what the BPM says. I'm going to assume that was probably
certainly they lost them. I just think that they replaced it with better than expected is all.
Kobe White, here's an interesting one. For all of the good stuff with Kobe White, he was net neutral when he was on the floor.
Yeah.
Which means that now, when he is not on the floor, you don't have DeMar DeRozan and Alex Caruso to hold you up. So all of those minutes get worse. Like, Josh Giddey can't hold up a bench unit. That's not a thing that Josh Giddey can do. He can help. I think Josh Giddey can help good units, but he can't help the bad units. Patrick Williams can't do that. Io DeSumnu can't do that. There's absolutely no upside there. They were 30th, dead last in opponent 3-point rate and 3-pointer made rate. They let you bomb. They actually got lucky defensively in that they allowed a better percentage than the location than they should have. Teams are going to bomb on them. Their defense is going to crater. And I'm a guy that believes in Billy Donovan, but the defense is absolutely going to crater. This is a lame duck season essentially for Billy. They're going to have to start over. They're going to trade Levine. They'll find some sort of taker for Vucevic. And in the meantime, Vuce has to start. And like, I have the EPM chart. It's like a straight downward line.
It's not
like,
good. Bottom
it's
5
so
starting
bad.
center. It's real bad.
And I love Vuce. I love Vuce and think that he's been a good veteran. It's just, he's not going to help you win now. I project 24.7. I project them at 25 wins before gag for flag. And I see no reason why they're not going to get to after the All-Star break and be like, pull the plug. This is finally the chance. Trade Levine and let's shut down Kobe and let's call it good. Let's get into the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. I'm on the under.
I mean, I want that to be true. As a Chicagoland resident and Bulls fan, I want that to be true. Don't forget also, the Bulls have traded their draft pick this year. It is top 10 protected, traded to the Spurs. If it's close, and this is kind of the right range, they are highly incentivized to lose games and tank. But guess what? The freaking Bulls have been highly incentivized to lose games and tank for like 4 years. They never do it, so I can't bet on it anymore. I think actually that pick information ends up not being relevant. I have them as like the number 6 or 7 pick. Even in my over here, the cutoff for top 10 is like 37 wins. Not in the picture. That's not happening for this team. Yeah. I don't think they need to tank to keep the pick. They're going to be bad anyway. I just think that you have to play Giddey because you got to see if you need to pay him and how much this year. You got to play Zach because you're right. The better Zach plays, the more likely he gets traded. Well, in the meantime, the better he's playing. And that still is going to help you in the meantime. So they got to play those two guys. I think that accidentally makes a floor. Pat Williams, $90 million for 5 years. I don't even know if he's an NBA player. Like, that is immediately a bottom 10 contract. This front office is out of its mind. I'm betting against the front office by betting the over here because I don't think the front office is smart enough to lean enough into where they're going. I think they're still stuck. I don't think they've gone anywhere down enough yet. I don't know that Levine is tradable. And for him to be good enough to be tradable, he's going to have been good enough to win some games in the meantime. I don't love it. I don't love the Bulls. I don't think it's a very fun team. I want more bad Bulls.
Yeah,
Bulls nihilism.
This is your fatalism. That's the thing. Like, this is your fatalism is
if they were not. What have you seen from this team in the last 3 decades since Michael Jordan to have anything other than fatalism?
I don't disagree with that, but I think the key here is if they were where you say they are, they just would have kept DeMar. Because there was a point where everyone heard, including me, was like, oh yeah, they're just going to keep DeMar. Like, they're going to absolutely keep, they're going to trade Caruso, but they're going to keep DeMar. And we were like, why? Like, what is wrong with you? And then they moved him. And that to me is like, that's a canary in the mine. If they are really willing to let DeMar DeRozan, think of it this way, Brandon. Think of how many tickets DeMar DeRozan sells. And the Reinsdorfs let him walk. That to me is the strongest signal of an actual direction for the Chicago Bulls. All right, it's got to do it for your Central Division preview. We've got lots of stuff on this one. I like the under on the Milwaukee Bucks. I like the under on the Chicago Bulls. I like the over 5 units on the Detroit Pistons. I'm going to wait and see on the Cavaliers, and I'm a no bet on the Indiana Pacers. Brandon's a no bet on the Pacers. He likes the over on the Bulls. He leans under on the Bucks. He does have an interest in, or are you actually log it in the app? Do you want? Well,
let me just recap here. I'm over on the Bulls 27.5, and then the only other real play in the division is just give me all the Cavs stuff. Over 48.5, 50 plus wins plus 150, division plus 300 multi-unit, and then I guess sort of a Pacers play. Cavs 1, Pacers 2 plus 1200. Just a nibble on the escalator. It's a Cleveland Cavs podcast, not a Detroit Pistons podcast.
You're going to football, sir. Actually, Brian's going to be on with us every Friday during the season. You'll be able to check that out. My thanks to David Payne, Hutton Jackson, getting us up on youtube.com/The Action Network and in your podcast feeds. We'll be back on Friday you'll be able to listen to our preview of the Northwest Division. Make sure to tune in Wednesday as I break down the Detroit Pistons more, because this is a Pistons podcast, as well as the Oklahoma City Thunder. We'll talk about that and more later. My thanks to Brandon Anderson. We'll see you guys again next time. Till then, let's get buckets.